And hi, this is the Rob Kall Bottom Up Radio Show, WNJC 1360 AM, reaching Metro Philly and South Jersey, sponsored by opednews.com. My guest today is Kamran Loghman. How do you say your last name?
You said it perfectly, Kamran and Loghman.
Okay, great. Kamran is an expert on pepper spray. Welcome to the show. And what makes you an expert?
Well, I have been obviously in many federal court proceedings regarding the use of force specific to pepper spray over the years. But going back in time, before pepper spray was even in existence, I was instrumental with another gentleman and the FBI and several other agencies to weaponize, to get the pepper spray and make it professional for professional use and put it on the market. So I was the president and CEO of a company called ZARC, Z-A-R-C at that time, for actually a good 2 decades, which we did extensive research and development, and we developed the program. We actually wrote the first training manuals and the use and guidelines for law enforcement agencies. I was myself instrumental in certifying 4,000 law enforcement officers. So the list goes on. So that was just 2 decades that basically we lived like that.
Wow. And you actually have a patent on it too, I think, right?
Yes, I do have patent, not on pepper spray, but on variety of specification on the technology of pepper spray, how you disperse it, how it's formulated, things like that.
What is pepper spray exactly? I mean, pepper spray's been around. Yeah, tell us what it is. I know it's capsicum, but tell us what it is. Is it a food?
Well, let me explain it for people so that they can better understand it. Let's start from the very beginning. All right, capsicum is the name for chili peppers, cayenne peppers, things like that. There are 300 varieties of it. And when you there is a process called oleoresin. It's oleoresin. Oleoresin is a process in which you actually take the oil and the different extracts within the pepper out. That process was invented in 1930s. And that process, the oil, is used in the food industry. That is correct. It's been used in a variety of tomato sauces, bologna, all sorts of things for many years. Later on, this process was refined to a point that the active ingredients within chili peppers, we're not talking about black peppers. Chili peppers are family of tomatoes. They're not the same as black peppers. The active ingredients within those peppers, which are called capsaicin or capsaicinoids, were isolated. That means they took that specifically, and we started developing that into a chemical that we can use for pepper spray. Now, some peppers, for example, are hotter than the other. The reason some peppers are hotter than the other is because of the amount of capsaicinoid or this chemical within that pepper. So when you take a certain amount of capsaicinoid and then you use different solvent, means like alcohol or water or oil or whatever, they mix it together, then you put it under pressure in a canister so to spray it out, that becomes really a pepper spray. You have many different models and brands of pepper spray out there. The active ingredient is basically the same, as I mentioned to you, of different concentration and strength. But the liquid that is in that canister and the gases are different. Some use, as I mentioned, alcohol, some use other things. So that's basically what it is that extract of chili peppers inside a canister being sprayed out.
Now, is the stuff that's being used in pepper spray a food?
No, you can. I mean, it is derived from food ingredients, but it's not edible if that's what you mean. No, you cannot eat it. Of course not.
Well, because, there was a Fox anchor woman who said this is basically a food. Is it? I mean, would you?
No.
Okay.
Because the active ingredient, is based and derived from a variety of food stuff used there. But by the time it is packaged in the form of a spray, there's too many chemicals that are being added in order to deliver this thing out of a can. So that liquid, which is called propellant and solvent and all these things that is happening there, none of those are food. So the person who gets sprayed at is not just getting sprayed by raw material food ingredients, also getting sprayed by all those chemicals.
Okay. So just before we got on the phone, you said you were pretty upset. What? Tell me about that.
Well, I haven't given an interview on pepper spray for 5 years now, and it's just I looked at it. I looked at the videos repeatedly, and at one point I almost came to tears because I thought of my children sitting in college, and they're being sprayed like insects, and that really upset me. And it is clear from watching the UC Davis video that the use of pepper spray, my professional opinion, is totally inappropriate and improper. That upset me.
And now, you've been into court. Have you ever been to court where police have been brought to court for inappropriate and improper use of pepper spray?
I have been to court numerous times over the last 2 decades, but I have never seen something like this ever in my life. I mean, you normally, when you come to court, is because a prisoner is not behaving and is going crazy and violent. An aggressive driver has been stopped and is punching and kicking, and the police cannot restrain them. There's all sorts of different scenarios which justify the use of force of pepper spray rather than shooting a person or batoning them in the head. But in this scenario, the use of pepper spray was not justified in accordance with any kind of use of force policy that I have. Every agency, every police department uses a training manual, whether it's federal, municipalities, cities, states, and I've never seen in any of their policy or training that this kind of spraying was correct. Students were sitting down, as we all saw, where there were no threat to the police officers or bystanders. So the use of pepper spray is justified only when there is such a threat. There was no threat to police officers. There were no threats to other people or bystanders around at that time. The other thing that upsets me a lot is that the canister was a high-volume canister. It was not a standard.
What do you mean? I've been wondering. There's a law in California that they're only allowed to use canisters that are 2.5 ounces.
Well, that's for civilian. That's for consumers, not for police department. Police department can use any kind of size they need to use it. That's professional use. Okay? But what it is that in training, they'll teach them what to do, and of course common sense will tell you what to do, which in this case we didn't see any common sense. Is that the canisters that if you walk around and you look at a police officer anywhere you are, look at their standard duty belt, you will see there's a can of pepper spray in there. It's about 3 inches long. That's the standard duty pepper spray that is used normally. When you are, and the kind of spray that they use there is really for large crowds in which you use that spray in order for the wind to take that over the crowd. I mean, the situation that happens in Egypt. That's the kind of example that I can give you. Not students who are sitting very peacefully on the ground doing not much but just sitting on the ground. So that high volume of canisters spray was very dangerous at that close range.
What do you mean?
And also the other thing that I can mention is that.
Go ahead.
The bystanders were screaming for water. It's extremely important to remember that any chemical, any chemical, which is natural or not natural, that's irrelevant. Any chemical that is foreign to the physiological system of a human body, when you get exposed to it, and most even it gets to your eyes and nose and respiration and all that, you need to be properly decontaminated. Police departments are all certified in the use of sprays, and they know how to decontaminate people. These students were not decontaminated. In fact, you see in the videos that kids are screaming for water. Now, what kind of after effects and side effects this is going to have on students is another story altogether. So that, again, was another improper use and misuse of the product.
So let's talk about that. First, you say this is very dangerous at close range. What is the danger?
Well, 2 things. One is that high-pressure liquid is entering into people's eyes and respiratory system. Second, you're getting more dosage than you need. I mean, if you're spraying, the dosages that are supposed to hit somebody's face is a certain amount. When you're coming with such an amount on people's faces, these kids don't know how to decontaminate themselves. They can have after effect and repeated after exposure effects for days to come. For example, they can be sleeping and touching their own hair and scratching their head and then put it in their own eyes. And because the hair is not properly washed, even if it's shampooed, and they're going to get the effect again and again. Same thing with respiration. The amount of chemical that enters into the respiratory system was not the usual standard that you're supposed to have. So this thing, let's just say this, they were exposed to too much chemicals at once.
So is there any long-term potential effect? Could this affect their sight 10, 20 years from now?
Well, I mean, sure it can. I mean, I can tell you out of every 100%, all hundreds of them, this is going to happen to them. But it's case with any kind of pharmaceutical or any kind of chemical that is foreign to the body. Some people are negatively prone to it when it passes that level of exposure. Who's asthmatic, who's not, and all sorts of things. I mean, by looking at it from a video, I can't tell you what's going to happen to each individual, but yes, I mean, when you don't use something properly, you always highly increase the chance of, these kind of things. And in this situation, the chances are pretty high because that was ridiculous the way it was sprayed.
So, you think it's likely or possible that the police and the police department and the university will be subject to civil suit for what happened here?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to what's going to happen with litigation in the mind of people, but all I can tell you, my intention here is that I want to make sure it's my civic duty and professional duty to make sure that the public and the students and everybody else and all police departments will hear it loud and clear that basically pepper spray is not designed to shut people if they want to give their opinions, or if they have a stance in the right, which one of it is just our primary right in this country. It is used only when somebody is a threat to a police officer or to bystanders. Kids that are sitting on the ground and they're doing nothing, and they're no threat to anybody. You don't spray them.
Well, I guess what I hear you. What I'm trying to get at is, what I would love to have come out of this interview is that police departments across the country find this news and discover that they're putting their department and their city or their school at risk for being sued because they're totally violating the appropriate use. Is that so?
Well,
and if you went into court and testified, if there was a hearing for this policeman and you looked at that video, what would you tell the jury?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that I am not going to simply blame the police officer. I think that's another thing about lack of leadership completely in the police department, in the school and everything else. I go around the country and do give speeches in leadership in the military and other places, in fact, right now. And that's one of the reasons I do that is because the lack of leadership shows that people do not use policies and trainings that have been used there. They know very well what is the right thing to do and under what conditions they need to use these things. So anytime you get away from that policy and training, you're misusing it. So to me, it's not just the individual officers. It's up and down there is a mistake there. There are other police officers who were standing there. Why did they not stop him? There were too many people around that area. It wasn't just, we can't just single him out just because he had the can in his hand. I think that there's a terrible thing going.
There were two police.
Yeah, I understand that. There were two of them. I understand that there were two of them. I'm just saying that in this situation, that's the thing. And you see that in Seattle, you see that in New York, you see that all over the place where police officers are basically thinking, now, well, you know what, nobody's saying anything. The use of pepper spray can be used against demonstrators that are peaceful. So that basically means that if Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi was walking around and we didn't like what they're saying, we could spray them. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, as far as what you do with those kids, it's very simple. I mean, that's what I mean by lack of leadership. I think that the chair of the school, as well as a wise, professor in that school and other people should have got together, not bring the police there, should have sat down and used their tongue and verbalize and speak with these kids, be friendly with them, say, listen, we heard you, let's bring you to a classroom, let's make a forum, let's do something official that the country will hear your voice, rather than let them be sprayed. I think there's no wisdom. There's absolutely no wisdom here. And what do you do? I mean, it's what is happening to this country. It's just lack of wisdom, lack of leadership, and it's going all the way down to each person, including police departments and school, and that's the people who receive the bad side of this is innocent kids are sitting there being sprayed. So bottom line to me, I'm upset because A, it was total misuse and improper use. Whether there is litigation or not or whatever, I leave that to the hand of the people who wanted to do whatever they want to do. That's not my case. But at the same time, I need to voice out that the use was wrong, and other people need to hear it loud and clear. These products were not developed to shut people who have an opinion.
I would imagine that when legislation was passed allowing the use of pepper spray, that there was clear language saying what is the proper use for it. Is that so? Do the laws describe?
Yes, absolute training manuals from Border Patrol to FBI to Secret Service to State Highway Patrol to Immigration to State Police to municipalities to corrections to prisons all specifically say what the use of pepper spray and chemical agents are about, and at what times you can use it and what times you cannot use it. Let me just say this very clearly for your audience here. The use of pepper spray, Rob, was not justified, and nowhere you would find in any manuals of any police department that what happened in UC Davis was correct. It's not gray. It's black and white. Pepper spray should not have been used.
So you're familiar with case law and prosecution and litigation. What is a typical case that you testify on? You mentioned the use in a prison. What would be why would it be in front of the court? Can you give an example or a composite example?
Police officers are trying to extricate somebody out of a jail. They're trying to bring him out of a jail or a cell, and the individual is not complying and starts kicking and punching and injuring police officers. At that time, to make sure that nobody gets hurt and that the prisoner himself or herself doesn't hurt herself or himself, they spray him. What they do right there is that they subdue him, they bring him out, or her, and then they do what they need to do, and then immediately after that, they give him or her a proper decontamination process to make sure that there is no residual of chemical on his clothing or his face. And that's the end of that. They just basically brought a situation that was out of control under control.
Now, why would that be in court?
This is the type of things you see.
But why would that be in court?
Well, I mean, the reason it goes to court, okay, what I just mentioned to you, it's not improper use. What happens is that now...
That's the way it should go, right?
Exactly. Now, imagine the same scenario, and you can, of course, use, drunk driving as an example while they're arresting or whatever. It's in the same situation. Now, imagine a situation, same situation. The prisoner is complying, but he's just cursing, and he's name-calling. Well, in this situation, you don't spray the prisoner. Or let's say you sprayed him because it was justified, or her, but you do not wash their face with proper decontamination and do all the things that you need to do. That, again, is improper use because the person is suffering unnecessarily and you're, opening yourself to long-term damage.
So you're saying that if a police officer sprays and then doesn't do decontamination and be prepared with the gear and the supplies for decontamination, they're not using it properly?
Of course not. Every highway patrol officer knows that when they stop somebody and they want to arrest them and they're starting to go crazy and they spray him with pepper spray, they immediately put him in the back of the car and they take him to the jail cell, and right there within the 15 minutes that they arrive there, they give them the proper decontamination. Everybody knows what to do with pepper spray. It's not a new technology. It's been around since 1980s for professional use, so people know what to do with it.
So did you see any signs that they were prepared to decontaminate, or how would that look if there was...
I mean, if they were prepared to decontaminate, you wouldn't have kids screaming, water, water. I mean, it's all over the videos.
So if police are going to where there is a protest, they should have with them decontamination supplies?
Yeah, they have to. Of course, they have to have. They have to be able to have when you spray chemical agents such as pepper spray on people on such a large volume, you need to be prepared to instruct the audience and instruct the population what to do and where to go and how they have to decontaminate themselves, or you have to provide decontamination. You can't just spray people and just say forget it.
Now, one of the first episodes of spraying was in New York when this Lieutenant Bologna sprayed women who were already contained and under custody. Did you see that?
Unfortunately, I have only second-hand information. I do not have detailed information on that situation.
So, would you think that the New York Police Department has had training and has policy manuals on how to do pepper spray? Have you trained?
One of our chief trainer of the company that I was president at did train the New York State Police, which then eventually they train all the other municipalities and departments in Manhattan and all that, all of them in early 1990s and late 1980s. So they're all trained. In fact, New York State Police came up with a very wonderful report called about pepper spray many, many years ago, and they very well know what this is.
Okay. Now, in order to carry pepper spray, does a policeman have to have training to use it?
Yes. Every one of them have to be trained. Not only that, every one of them have to be sprayed in the face so they know what it does during training. Yeah.
Have you been sprayed?
I have been sprayed of it, Gilbert. I was probably one of the first people who have ever been sprayed in this country because we were developing the product.
You know, I was covering a protest in Washington last month, and I think some guards panicked, and they sprayed in a small area, and I wasn't sprayed in the face. I wasn't even sprayed near me, but I was in a I don't know, a 30 by 10 foot vestibule where there was spray, and it hurt my eyes and it made me cough. I mean, I can't imagine the difference between having even a moment of spray directly on me, and these kids had it intense and concentrated more than once. The dosage has to be massive. I mean, how much?
Well, I mean, you put your hand right on the thing. I mean, that is exactly what. Listen, if you have somebody who's under influence of narcotics or drugs, and they're going crazy, and you want to control them, you want to have a kind of spray that can be, effective on this individual. At the same token, it doesn't cause serious damage to this individual. All right? So pepper spray is justified. It's a good product. It's better than using a gun. It's better than using a baton. However, you're absolutely right. When you misuse it against these kids, the pain and the intensity of the burning sensation and the coughing and what happened days after with these kids without proper contamination, I cannot imagine either. That's why I told you when I started this conversation, it brought me to tears.
So, in Wikipedia, it talks. I mean, there are some serious risks. Some people die from pepper spray. Is that? And you're saying is it because of allergies or something like that? But there's the risk when you use pepper spray that it can kill somebody. There
is a lot of misinformation about pepper sprays on the market from common man and non-experts, including Wikipedia. Wikipedia, in fact, is a great source. I myself go to it a lot, but that doesn't mean everything is accurate.
Okay, so
pepper spray has never been related to death. Okay, what has happened? That it has not been the cause of death. The improper use of pepper spray has been the cause of death. So I want to make that very clearly.
Okay, so you're saying what these police did in UC Davis was improper use.
It was improper use, absolutely.
So it could have caused death the way they used it.
Yeah, there has been many situations in which people have died not directly because of pepper spray, but because of what police officers did after the individual got sprayed. For example, you just said yourself that when you were in that room, you started coughing. One of the physiological effects of pepper spray is coughing and basically, running out of breath. I mean, you're having a hard time breathing. I mean, you're still breathing. It's not that you stop breathing, but you're having a hard time breathing. Sometimes police officers arrest individuals. You've seen them, and they put them face down on the ground, and then while they're trying to, put their handcuff, and then they put their knees on the back of the individual. All right? You don't do that when people are pepper sprayed because you're restricting the breathing even more. So in that kind of situation, some people have died. It's called positional asphyxiation. So police officers, again, are trained what to do after spraying people so that this kind of thing doesn't happen. So I want to repeat again, it was not directly because of pepper spray. Again, the misuse of pepper spray by police officers and the department that has caused death, and that's just been there and done that 20 years.
So you could say that pepper spray, when misused, could be a lethal weapon.
I mean, anything misused can become a lethal weapon. You know that. I mean, after drinking too much water, your blood can become thin too much, and you will die. If you do not digest the water. You can only get 4 liters of water can go in your stomach. Beyond 4 liters of water, your blood starts thinning and you die. I mean, this is misuse of water. This is the same thing. It's not intended to be a deadly weapon, but you can make it a deadly weapon.
And it sounds like the police were using it in a way where it could be a deadly weapon.
Well, I mean, the police officers that I saw, I think they weren't even thinking, which is unlike any trained professional police officer. They were spraying while other people were laughing.
You mean other police?
I don't know what to make of that.
What do you think about the chain of command at UC Davis?
I tell you, I mean, we keep saying why our education is going down, why our economy is like this and all that. I mean, lack of leadership. Again, I just want to mention to you, one of my expertise is not, pepper spray is something I don't do anymore. I did that for 2 decades, and my job right now is leadership. And I have done things at U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. I do it all around the country in corporations. I teach about what is proper leadership, because there is a lack of leadership. I just think that the college and the people at police departments, I mean, there's no leadership. I mentioned to you, these are kids. I mean, kids, every parents know that kids sometimes become belligerent and they don't listen. What do? You don't go get a bucket of vinegar and just spray it all over their head. You sit down and talk to them. Or you ignore them for a while. So they settle down. These kids needed communication. They needed to be heard. They needed somebody to take their cause in the school and formalize it so they can listen to, so their voices can go somewhere, so they feel good about their self-esteem, so that they're being heard, rather than being belittled and punished with pepper spray. I mean, what is there to question about leadership? I mean, do you see leadership here?
My question is, does the chief of police, is he responsible? Is the chancellor responsible? Where does the use of pepper spray policy end? I mean, does the mayor? I don't think.
Rob, to be honest with you, I don't know.
Chain of command?
If you're asking about the police department specifically, it's very unfair to always get the chief of police and nail him on the cross, because he knows what the policy is. He's trying to enforce the policy, and he's probably sitting at home and doesn't even know what's going on at UC Davis, because there are too many different crimes and other things are going in the state or the city at that time. All right? Or he's sitting in his office. It is people in the field that are making decisions. And the people in the field are the people who are responsible. The police, I don't believe.
What would happen? Let me ask you a question. What if a citizen, not a policeman, took a big canister like that and used it on people at that close range in their faces like that? What would happen to that citizen?
That citizen has used a force that it's a crime. I mean, you'll go to jail immediately. You intend to harm people.
And what kind of...
It's an assault. It's a physical assault with intent to harm.
And what would the punishment be for some kind of a use of I'm
not a criminologist. I can't tell you what the punishment in that is, but I can tell you this much. You'll be in court before you blink an eye.
And what would you say if the prosecution was asking you to be an expert witness? Let's say that a student, let's say that somebody who was an animal, let's say somebody wanted cars to be electrical, went to a factory and started spraying a bunch of factory workers who made gasoline automobiles. And you were brought in as an expert for the prosecution to say how bad was this, what they did, spraying it up front to a group of workers at a cafeteria line, let's say.
Well, I mean, the focus has to be on the individual and the action they did, not the canister, whether it was used properly or improperly, because that person is not trained in the use of it anyway. That person is like spitting at somebody's face, and take that multiplied by 1,000 times. I mean, you have basically assaulted a large number of people with intent to harm them, whether you pick a stick and beat people in the head, or whether you take a knife and you start attacking them. Whatever it is, you are trying to harm people.
And I guess
and if the only way it was justified is that if somebody was attacking you and you were defending yourself in self-defense. Other than that, you have no right to use pepper spray on anybody as a civilian.
I would imagine that the police who know the power and how to properly use it, in some ways, it's worse.
Well, police departments are... Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Police departments are what?
I mean, police department, as we mentioned before, they're fully trained to the extent that they even get, as I mentioned before earlier, they get sprayed in the face, so they know what that is. And they know what the policies and guidelines are.
So when is it legally defensible for citizens to use pepper spray? And how is the pepper spray that they get different than what the police use?
Well, unfortunately, there are no laws in this country about, the kind of pepper spray. If you know where to buy it, it's the same as guns. You can buy the law enforcement professional-grade pepper spray and carry it by yourself. So that's that. Now, in regards to, what is the justification to use when your life is in danger? If your state allows you to carry pepper spray, it's not illegal, which most states are legal, then, if you feel somebody's assaulting you, and you feel that your life is in danger, you have a right to defend yourself, and you spray them with pepper spray, and the end of that story. But then again, you have to prove it, that your life was in danger, that you felt that you're going to be harmed. You can't just walk around and everybody you don't like, you're going to spray them.
Okay, a couple more questions now. Are uses of pepper spray recorded or filed by police departments? Is there a formal system for recording it when it's used, like when a gun is fired?
Yes, every time you use pepper spray, you have to file a use of force report.
Okay. What would an ophthalmologist say about the potential risks of exposure to the kind of pepper spray use that was engaged in UC Davis?
Ophthalmologist, the concern would be two things. One is pressure. At what pressure the spray has hit the eyes, the cornea of the eyes and all that. And so normally, depending on the canister, you have to be at the right range. You don't want to be too close because there is such a thing called hydraulic needle effect. That means you're so close to the eyes that you can basically puncture the eyes. You can hurt the eyes. You can cause conjunctivitis and, inflammation of the eyes and all sorts of things. So that's one thing from a mechanical point of view, how close you are, with what pressure is hitting the eye. The second thing, of course, which is the most important part, because the majority of the time, you're not very close to the eye, although in this situation they were. The majority of the time, the ophthalmologist's concern is, has the individual been decontaminated? Look at every product that you have yourself in your medicine cabinet or your kitchen or whatever it is. It says on it that if it comes to contact with the eye, flush it for 15 minutes with water and make medical attention if necessary. Same thing, that's what the ophthalmologist's concern will be, is that, okay, you got exposed to pepper spray. Did you decontaminate your eyes properly so that there is no residual of chemical, and did you do it immediately? That's what the concern will be.
And what if they didn't? What are the risks? What would the ophthalmologist look for a week later and 10 years later?
You will see abrasion in the white parts of the eyes and other parts of the eyes. You will see inflammations of the eyes, meaning the eyes is red, that is not going down. You see things like that.
What was the word you used for the white part of the eyes? What would you see?
You see inflammation or abrasion, like cuts.
Abrasion.
Yes.
Abrasion? So
Yeah.
is there any risk at all to the cornea?
Yeah, you'll see that too. You'll see that too. If there is, depending, but most of the time, you see it immediately on the white of the eye.
What's the risk to the white of the eye, and what's the risk to the cornea? What could happen?
Is the same. Is the same, but to someone who's just looking casually on the eye, because the white of the eye is lighter in color, you can see inflammation much faster than you can see on the cornea and all that.
And is there long-term risk to any permanent damage or loss of vision?
Well, again, it depends on circumstances. It depends on the pressure that was delivered. It depends on how long did it take before they decontaminated, or they did not even decontaminate. If they didn't, yes, it can. The chemical sits there until you clean it out, and who knows how many hours. In you, for example, let's say you take a headache pill. May take 30 minutes to work, and another person 15 minutes, and another person an hour. Same thing with that. With pepper spray, you don't know how long it takes in each eyes to cause long-term damage. In the one person, maybe 30 minutes. One other person, maybe 2.5 hours. So,
if there is that long-term damage, what kind of? That's what I'm trying to get at. What kind of long-term? Let's say a protester gets sprayed directly in the face and then runs away and is not decontaminated. What could happen to their eyes for the rest of their life? Is there potential that something could affect them permanently?
It could affect them permanently, but then again, the disease of the eyes are just not one, as you know, is numerous, and I'm not a medical doctor, but I can tell you from what I've read and what I've seen, any kind of chemical of that sort, when you come exposed to it, if you're not decontaminated, you have the higher risk than usual to cause eye disease. So what those eye diseases are, it all depends on how it develops in an individual.
What kind of eye diseases?
Well, as I mentioned to you, you can have physical eye damage in which, your vision is not good. You can have cataract. You can have all sorts of things.
Cataracts? What else?
Yeah. Well, the list, as I told you, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't really sit down and specifically tell you exactly the kind of eye diseases that long-term damage of. There has never been studies in which a person does not get decontaminated for days and hours and all that, because the proper procedure of use of pepper spray is that if you decontaminate an individual within 15 to 45 minutes or even 1 hour, the person is going to be fine. All right? But if they're not, depending on, I'm talking about the regular delivery, not at the high level of delivery that was done in UC Davis. So it's going to be fine. So we know that there shouldn't be any long-term damage if you use it properly and you decontaminate properly. You are not pushing the envelope, saying that, well, you know what, if you misuse it and you don't decontaminate, and you don't decontaminate for X hours, what happens at 2 hours? What happens at 10 hours? What happens at 2 days? To be honest with you, who knows? Because we have not, that's not the proper use of pepper spray. It is not supposed to be used like that. That is not the process.
There are not even animal studies of this?
There have been animal studies about what happens in 1 day and 2 days and this, that, the other, but with proper contamination process.
There haven't been studies looking at what happens when it's abused like it was by the UC Davis police?
No. And not that I know of. If somebody has done something like that, it hasn't come to my attention, and I see most of the reports. No, I have not seen anything like that.
Okay. Now, because this is happening all over America now, what should people do? What should people who are going to a protest where they're at risk bring with them so that they can take care of themselves or others? What is proper decontamination?
Well, I think one of the first things they need to do if they're going to these kind of places is that they need to have some sort of goggles so that it doesn't hit the eyes directly, and you have the goggles that you use in any kind of wood shop or workshop or whatever it is. Acrylic type of goggles you should have. And then, put one of those, gas mask dust type of thing that you can buy for $1, the white kind that you put when you have a flu or whatever, in front of you, so that, and that's not a protection 100% against pepper spray, but it gives you a chance to basically give you an exit so you can run away from it and then get to the first water that you can and start washing your face and the bathroom or whatever, and get some soap and wash your face real good as if you've been muddied several times. And until you feel no burning sensation whatsoever, which normally takes about 15 to 20 minutes, and after that you should be fine.
What about breathing? Any precautions for if you've breathed it in?
Well, I don't want to be sarcastic, but do everything you can not to breathe it and run away.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely understand and know about that. So now I've heard something that other things like milk or Maalox can be even better than water, or is there anything to that?
No. There are tear gases and other type of chemicals out there. Okay, like for example, the tear gas you see that is being, the smoke that you see in riot controls in Gaza Strip or in Egypt and this, that, the other you see. Those kind of tear gases are called orthochlorobenzylmalonyl. Those are the kind of chemicals that are man-made chemicals, and those kind of things require, for example, soda ash or baking soda and this, that, the other. Pepper spray can be washed very well with alcohol, and it can also be washed with water and soap, as long as you do it well. You can't just do a little one, and you have to wash your hair real well, because if your hair has not been washed, again, you're going to contaminate yourself one more time, a secondary contamination. As I mentioned to you, you go to shower the next day, again, whatever was on your hair will come back right to your eyes again. Right. So you need to make sure your hair is washed well.
Any other tips to people who have been sprayed?
Well, I know we're going to be on a public radio, but I will tell you this. Do not touch your private area when you get hit by pepper spray, because it's going to be nightmare in pain. Wash your hands very well before you eat any mucous membrane. Mucous membrane means any part of your body that is sweats, under your arms, nose, inside your mouth, eyes, private area, any kind of things like that can instantly feel the burning sensation, and it's very painful.
Okay. Anything you want to wrap this up with?
Well, again, I really appreciate for giving me the chance to speak about this thing, but my goal, Rob, is not about pepper spray or not pepper spray. My goal is that I want the public to be informed that they have to stand for their rights. I'm not talking about taking political side here. I'm just talking about their rights, whatever that is, right or wrong. And a loud message has to be given to our leadership that, you cannot use this kind of force against people to shut them down. And this is not about UC Davis. UC Davis is a perfect example. It exemplifies what is happening around the country. It is used specifically for people who are a physical threat to police departments, police officers, or bystanders. That's what it's supposed to be used. It's not supposed to be used for people who are talking or sitting down, or they're not aggressive or anything like that. So I want to make sure people know their rights, and I want to make sure this message goes loud and clear to everybody around the country that you can't just use weapons on people for no good reason.
It's been a horrible thing to watch, I'll tell you. Have you had any issues of conscience with this, having been so involved in its development?
No, not at all, because I'll tell you something. I do think that probably we saved hundreds of thousands of lives and broken bones over the last 20 years worldwide. Because they didn't baton them, they did not shoot them. A drunk doesn't know what he's saying. Used to, before get a baton, his elbow used to break, his collarbone used to break, this and that. None of that has happened. My conscience is clear. We introduced a lower level of force, a force that is not lethal to police departments, a more humane way to take care of people who are aggressive, people who are trying to harm other people. Now, the situation in UC Davis is not at all falls within what I just told you. This product was not developed to be used against people who are not aggressive, who are not, trying to hurt other people. So, no, I feel that it has a place like anything else. It's better than shooting and killing people or hurting them and breaking their necks and this, that, the other. But then again, what do you do? This is the world we live in right now. You can't even go to college because you're going to get sprayed.
Okay. You have a website, right?
Yes, I do have a website, but not regarding pepper spray. But my website for my leadership, people can reach me from there, is called Heroic, like hero, heroicleadership.com. Heroicleadership.com, and people can reach me from there.
All right. Thank you so much. This is the Rob Kall Bottom Up Radio Show. I've been talking to Kamran Loghman, who developed pepper spray into a weapons-grade material with the FBI in the 1980s. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Pleasure.
Oh, but hang on just a minute, okay?